Almost all of us learn from experience. Don't touch that. It's hot. Don't. And we all know what happens. For me, it was watching 4-year-old Kayla at a church event walk by a grill, a gas grill. I told her to stay away from about 15 times and literally put her hand on it so that she could swing around it. Put her hand on that innocuous-looking rectangle of fiery flame to swing around. It was not a good day. A few weeks back, I was talking to our junior high about how they learned what was hot. And almost every one of them, like us, had a story like this, and a memory of blisters and peeling skin that literally seared a lesson into their minds. We learn from experience. Today we meet Jesus, and he speaks in parables. The kingdom of heaven is like mustard. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast. The kingdom of heaven is like... But at the end of the lesson, we see something that doesn't really help us very much in the understanding of parables. We see Jesus explain one. Now, I'm not saying Jesus never did this. I just doubt he ever explained a parable in just one way. You see, a parable was an invitation to crawl inside a story and see the many, many things it could mean or could be about. For example, what's everyone's favorite parable? Probably the prodigal son. But let's look at the story. Greedy boy asks dad for the money he'd get when dad dies, the inheritance. Dad gives him money. Greedy boy goes off and drinks and other things this money away, ends up working with pigs, not good for a Jewish dude, and realizes he might as well go home and throw himself on the mercy of his father and ask to just be a slave in the house. But of course, dad, when he sees him, freaks out, runs down the road, throws his arms around him, kills the fatted calf, has a huge celebration, and then the son who remained behind, the son who worked so hard, who did what he was supposed to do, is so PO'd he will not even go into the party. What's with that title, the prodigal son? Couldn't this be the parable of the loving father? Or maybe even the parable of the son who remained behind? Are those titles and the interpretations they bring to the story any less significant? No, of course not. The beauty, the genius of a parable lies in precisely that. Settling on just one interpretation of a parable ignores the richness of the art. And most likely Jesus told his audience parables and then let them go to town on them, led them on the greatest class of theology and literature imaginable as they unlocked the treasure trove of meanings attached to the stories. I say all this because, yes, I'm going to veer from the neat interpretation we get in Matthew. I know Jesus probably said these words, but I doubt Jesus ever had just one interpretation of a parable, but that's all Matthew cared to share here. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who has sowed good seed in the field, while everyone was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" And he answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Do you want us to go and gather them?" But he said, "No. For in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." This is the field of my life. Maybe it's yours. Not that someone has come into my field and done this. My life is the field. I am the sower, but I'm also the enemy. I've tried to sow good. I've tried to do well. I've tried to be godly and wise and decent. But then there's greed. Then there's pride. Then there's jealousy and fear. There's bad seed. And sometimes it gets sown when I don't even realize it. And there they are, growing together. While Bill Clinton, and I know he's a polarizing figure, but give me a chance here. While Bill Clinton was president, he basically forced Haiti to drop tariffs against the sale of foreign rice in that country. Now, the story's complicated. It really has roots back in the Reagan administration. But the thing is, what sounded like a good idea, bring cheap American rice to the hungry and the poor of Haiti, destroyed much of Haiti's way of life because it put Haitian farmers literally out of business, unable to compete with the cheap bags of rice flooding the country. It made Haiti a slave to aid. In 2010, Bill Clinton said, "It may have been good for some of my farmers in Arkansas, but it has not worked. It was a mistake. I have to live every day with the consequences of the lost capacity to produce a rice crop in Haiti to feed those people because of what I did." That seed, it looked good when it got sowed in the field. The intentions even seemed good, even if it was a little, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But even an intention that included feeding people ended up looking really weedy. And Haiti, for this and a lot of other reasons, has never really recovered. And please pray for Haiti. What's going on right now there is awful. Protests, injustice, and it's really, really worrying those who are here, who have served there and have friends there. The suffering continues today, even as it's buried in our news. Well, here's the thing about the parable, in my interpretation for today. We sin, we fall short. Those sins fall like seeds among our good acts and our good intentions in the fields of our lives. But we usually don't quite see the damage they cause until they grow, which God lets them do. God lets them be so that then we will see. We regret the mistakes we make. We mourn the pain we cause. We mourn the pain we cause others and ourselves. We mourn our inactions, our failures to respond. We mourn our selfishness, that seed that chokes our lives and even the planet. Jesus wants wheat. And we sow some wheat, but we fail. And we also sow bad seed, but God lets it grow. Because then we can see, and that is how we learn. We need to touch the hot stove to learn the consequences. We need to touch the stove to become wise. And at the end, when we see all the bad plants, we can pull them up and throw them in the fire, which will purify them. Fire in the Bible is purifying. It will purify them and us. This weedy, fruitful field, this is my life and probably yours. I often wonder if the greatest sin in many cases is not the sin itself, but the failure to learn the lesson it provides. One more time. I often wonder if the greatest sin in many cases is not the sin itself, but the failure to learn the lesson it provides. We can't become godly without learning, and to do that, we have to make mistakes. So, what weed is in your garden? Have you failed to be truthful? Pull up the weed. Confess. Ask forgiveness. Throw it into the fire. Be truthful. Have you been selfish? Pull up the weed. Confess. Throw it in the fire. Ask forgiveness. Be generous even deny yourself. Have you failed in a relationship? Pull up that failure. Confess. Ask forgiveness. Throw it in the fire. Be better the next chance you have at relationship. Have you put someone down? Pull it up. Confess. Ask forgiveness. Throw it into the fire. Lift people up. Have you reveled in gossip and criticism? Pull it up. Confess, ask forgiveness, throw it into the fire, stop and speak love. Have you harbored racist thoughts or delighted when the systems put in place put down those who seem different than you? Pull it up, confess, ask forgiveness, throw it in the fire, speak for and work for justice. Have you failed to love your neighbor as yourself? Pull it up, confess, ask forgiveness, throw it in the fire, and remember, today's a new day to start. Have you treated yourself poorly? Been overcritical? Shamed your own very being? Pull it up, confess, ask forgiveness, throw it in the fire, and remember, you are still in the image of God. This field is my life. It's your life. And it is filled with lessons. And God, in God's good wisdom, lets the lessons grow so we can learn. May we have the strength and the God-given wisdom to do some weeding.